Hello and welcome to the Ascension Football Show, where this particular episode will take a spin looking at rounding up the Ascension Tournament of Trinidad and Tobago, which has really gone off to an explosive start in 2022. I am Jassy Marique, and joining me will be the tournament director as we look back at some of the highlights, maybe even some of the lowlights of this year's competition so far. We'll just jump right into it after this. Seven match weeks have gone in the Ascension Tournament of Trinidad and Tobago 2022, and there has been some fluctuation, but as it stands, it's really tight at the top. Terminix La Hoquita Rangers leading the way, followed closely by Police FC and the Defence Force, and so far those three teams have sort of looked to separate themselves. Of course, Canoopia FC, they once led the standings and they have dropped to fourth, but so far it seems to be Rangers and the two service teams leading the forefront as we close out the first round of this year's tournament. Your reflections on the last game week that we saw, of course, some heavy score lines in favor of Terminix La Hoquita Rangers over Central FC, and as well the Defence Force over Moruga FC.
Jessica, I think the surprise for me in the last match round would have been Canoopia going down to Deportivo, point 14. I think that was the surprise. I thought Canoopia would have kept pace with the leaders and really push on to dominate. But seeing a non-professional outfit toppling them in the last match round was a surprise to me.
Yeah, and certainly they would be reeling from that because it was an opportunity, as rightfully said, to keep a pace with the top two, the top three in this competition so far. On that same Friday evening, the Defence Force made no such mistake coming up against the Moruga FC team, which has shown a lot of fight, but certainly has found it really tough to bamba with the big boys, as they say.
I think Moruga understands where the big boys are in professional football. And with Defence Force getting their, I think they started off a little shaky, but getting their feet wet, they really show that they are one of the top teams in the tournament.
Yeah, and they certainly know how to handle this type of approach, this type of tournament. You know, of course, one of the more storied teams in the local TT Pro League circuit, and even previous incarnations of top flight football in Trinidad and Tobago, and they've shown, you know, their clinical ability, and certainly they are challenging now Terminix La Hoquita Rangers. Goal difference may come into play the way things are going, because it's just 1 point separating the top two and one more point separating 2 and 3. So a heavy win for Defence Force, matched almost by Terminix La Hoquita Rangers when they took on Central FC. Your thoughts on how Rangers approached that match? You know, at one point I did think that Central may have maybe snuck in a goal or two to unsettle Rangers. We haven't seen them really unsettled this season so far. But how did that match pan out for you?
I think that they approached it well. Central did well in the first half. I think most persons thought it would have been a blown out early in the game. 5-6 goals in the first half, but Central already stuck in, played behind the ball, came off, I think, 3-0 in the first half. So, but Rangers being the outfit they are, wanting to win this title. Remember, Defence Force are the defending champions of the tournament. Right. So Rangers, knowing that they have to keep pace, they can't, no slip-ups. They would have played Defence Force in the first game, drew 1-1. So seeing the 8, they had to come out and put out a show, and I think they did that Saturday night in the Velodrome.
Unlucky for Central FC. Importantly, though, as mentioned, it was their first game away from home for Terminix La Hoquita Rangers, accustomed playing at the Phase 2 ground in La Hoquita, but still within their realm, so to speak, of Arima. You know, to talk a little bit about that, you know, and did you expect maybe a little bit of nerves seeing that they weren't in their comfort zone, so to speak?
Looking on at Terminix, La Hoquita Terminix Rangers in the past, the Pro League, they would have been playing outside. They came second in the last professional league in Trinidad and Tobago. So they are accustomed playing out, they are accustomed winning away from home. So it wasn't a surprise going out and getting the job done against Central. They
certainly will continue to try to keep stride, and we'll look at the upcoming fixtures in a while. But looking at the performance, as you mentioned, of teams such as Deportivo Point Fortin, looking to make some moves now as we come to the end of the first round, you know, and looking at the next matchup, against Real Westfort, a team that led against AC Port of Spain in what I am calling the derby of Port of Spain on the weekend, and letting it slip. How do you see Real Westfort being able to cope, coming off of that defeat especially?
I truly believe, before watching the fixtures, I would have said the big games for match week 8 would have been Rangers versus Canopia, Defence Force versus Police. But watching at it now, I think outside of the Police Defence Force game, I think the Deportivo Real Westfort game is a very crucial game in the next round. Deportivo needs that win to go past the likes of Canopia and really see if they can finish a second or a third within the league. So I think it's an important game for them. They've been growing week by week. And Westfort as well, being mid-table, need to get bounced back from that loss. I think it was a devastating loss for them. They were on top. AC Port of Spain not winning a game and then coming back and winning in the late of the game. I think it's one that Coach Ron Lafrey and his team needs to bounce back from quickly. So I think that game is a very important game.
Importantly, it was the one sort of change that we saw in the standings, that result helping AC Port of Spain to push on 2 spots. Looking at their structure, their organization as well, I think they've sort of underachieved so far for the tournament, and definitely as we come to the end of the first round, wins like that hopefully would give them the momentum.
I think they would be looking at maybe trying to get to about 9-10 points after the first rounds, and then hoping that they could have a turnaround in the second rounds. AC Port of Spain was one, when you watch the team sheet, is one that you expected more from. National players within their midfield. Shea Benny is there. He grabbed a couple goals weekend, but I think they've really underachieved. Being a professional outfit, not doing too bad in the last professional league. I think AC Port of Spain is one that the country is looking on to see if they could really push on. The amount of young talent they have, I think they need to do better within the tournament.
One of the results of the weekend for me was that Police FC against Central Soccer World. Police needed the win as well. With things being as tight as they are at the top of the table, they would have seen Defence Force demolish one team, and then the next day, La Hoquita Rangers also, putting quite a few goals past their opponents. Police needed a win, maybe not as handsome, but they needed to weather a potential tricky clash against Central Soccer World.
Yeah, I actually believe so. The previous rounds, they would have mirrored what Defence Force and Terminex would have done. Both teams scoring 5 and Police scoring 5 on the Sunday as well. I think they wanted to do that in this game. I think a little bit of indiscipline amongst the team. They started off well, got early goals, but 2 red cards within the game in discipline. With an important game ahead, I think Police need to, they will have to go back to the drawing board in terms of what they do going forward and the discipline within the outfit. And it's Police FC. They need to show that a little more discipline within the games as well.
Well, first things first, at least they were able to secure the 3 points that they needed to stay, among the top 2 as they are currently positioned. But you definitely make an interesting point, with a big game coming up against the Defence Force in the next match week. 2 of your starters sent off. I certainly think they'd have a lot to adjust to going into that match.
Purcell, for example, being their stopper, really turning back the times as a 30 plus player within the tournament. But getting the goals, he has 3 goals for the tournament. He's grabbed crucial goals for Police. Knowing Defence Force Police through the years is normally a tight game. Now we are losing a threat on set pieces, out with a red card, really silly red card. We will see how that really pans out for them in the upcoming game.
They definitely have a versatile and a deep squad, though. Elijah Belgrave, for instance, has slotted in that centre-back position after starting the season wide on the left. Rakim KB, who's usually Purcell's partner, could come back in. So maybe not too much upsetting, but I think in the midfield is where they'll have some things to think about, because the red card for Simeon Bailey, leaves them without that sort of defensive hard man, and they have a really young squad. How do you think they'll patch up that area?
I think Coach Hood has some tweaking to do. He would have to rethink this. We know defense force style in terms of a rugged style. Bailey would have been their rock in the midfield, being solid, cleaning up everything. So I think there's some. He's been lacking some. He would be lacking something, but I think Police through the years, winning the FCB Cup, I think they've grown. They have matured to be a top team in Trinidad. So I believe that they would. It's a test for Coach Hood. He's one of the better coaches within Trinidad, so I think he would be able to weather the storm. I hope at least he will be able to weather the storm.
On the other side of that fixture, Central Soccer World, playing against a team 2 men down for the better part of maybe 20, 25 minutes towards the end of that match. One would have thought they would have made a better go of it.
I was surprised. The first red card, because they had some opportunities within the first half, going down as well early. I thought they would have come on in the second half, getting those 2 red cards early against Police. I think they would have pushed on and at least make a fight of it. Must give kudos to Coach Hood and the Police outfit for regrouping and reshaping, and because they made a fight of it as well. They had Police had chances to score later as well, so they would have weathered that storm properly, but I was looking for a little more from Central Soccer World in terms of pushing on, putting more, and really taking the opportunity and taking some risks in terms of maybe taking off a defender, bringing on an attacker, and really going for, because they are mid-table as well. So you need to take those opportunities. I think that was one missed yesterday at the Police barracks.
I certainly think they did hesitate to make some changes, even for the Police team. Around the time when the first red card was issued, they had sort of freshened up their midfield and their attack, and I guess that was able to sort of push Coach Hood through, because down a man they had fresh legs in the key areas of the park. So they were able to continue to run at Central Soccer World, where they didn't do the same. They didn't freshen up their legs.
And that was surprising. We know a team going down 2 men. The first thing you need to do is put on all the attackers. You hit them at Jose Marino. You need
to put on some runners.
You play 2 in the back, 3 in the back, and you go, because you're down 3-1. There's nothing to lose. If they nick one, it's the gamble. So you need to take off a couple defenders, put on attackers, and really make that push. As well too, psychologically, it would put going down 2 men. They bring on attackers. You would obviously go in a defensive shape. But they didn't do that. They allowed Police to kind of get their confidence, regrouped, restructure, and they lose the game 3-1. I think it was disappointing.
Let's go back to what you identified as the match of the round. That result on Friday evening, Kunupe FC going down to Deportivo Point Fortin. And again, an opportunity for Kunupe to ensure that they stayed with the pack, so to speak. And Deportivo Point Fortin, however, finding some strides, finding some momentum in this tournament, and getting a goal through the experience, Andre Pacheco. That sort of result could transform a team season, in both ways. Since Kunupe FC could find themselves sliding backward further from here.
I think Kunupe needs to relook and have a rethink of things. They would have played defense force, going down 5-0. That was a surprising loss to me. Then coming to play Deportivo, a team that is growing. They've had a few additions, experienced players. Houghton Hector is around the team a little more, playing a little more. He would have started the game against Kunupe. And seeing that, and now going and play Rangers, Terminex Rangers, that could be 3 losses on the bounce. It's something that they need to check. They would have started off the season well. So I think it's very important for Kunupe in the next game to make that upset and get back amongst the leaders within the tournament.
It's actually 3 defeats in 4 matches, because they would have lost to Police FC as well, which allowed Terminex Rangers to snap up the lead, which they haven't relinquished since. And I think that really and truly for Kunupe FC, it's a big letdown considering the games that they have ahead in this first round. We'll see if they'll continue to backslide. On the other end, we'll see if Deportivo Point Fortin can continue to build that momentum, as you mentioned, with some of the experienced and seasoned players around. Nathaniel Garcia, for instance, Hilton Hector, as mentioned. Marvin Phillip, interestingly, did not play that game. He's the captain out, but hopefully he's well rested to take on their next assignment against Real Westfort. You know, we'll take a quick break on the Ascension football show wrap up, and of course we'll come back looking a little bit at some of the players that have so far graced this competition with their skill. Unfortunately, the attackers have really stolen much of the spotlight so far, but we'll focus on as many of the other supplementary players as best as possible. The Ascension football show continues as we look to wrap up what we've seen so far. Match week 7 done and dusted, in the books, so to speak. And so far, you know, many players have sort of graced our televisions and have certainly put their hands up for recognition, certainly in this league, in this competition so far. Among them, some of the goal scorers. You know, we'll have a quick look at the men who are topping that table in particular, and of course, headed by the man Kevon Showtime Woodley for Cunupia FC. And although they have sort of slid down in the table after the latest round, he certainly is the head honcho so far.
So far, 9 goals for the season. I don't know how much of the sliders are credited, well, not, I don't want to say accredited, but because of the lack of goals in the last couple of games. I'm talking 3 games without a goal. I think he needs to start back to score. We was expecting, when I saw the start, I expecting Woodley to be by now 13, 14 goals. I think, but it's been, I don't know if teams are now planning for him and adapting to what Cunupia was doing in terms of Showtime, but I think it is one he needs to get back in amongst the goals.
They have been unfortunate as well, you know, a couple matches, you know, depleted in terms of personnel. They also had some red card trouble earlier on, and we saw Woodley being deployed in a midfield position, you know, so maybe that has attributed to his sudden dip in form. But a man of his caliber, you know, and with a nickname like Showtime, you can never write him out. Any moment now he could pop up with something spectacular, 2, 3, maybe even a beaver trick in the near future for them. You know, Rayon Moore of the Defence Force is one of 3 soldiers in the top 5. In fact, Jamil Boatswain would have gone ahead of him with a double in their last game, and now, you know, we see the servicemen coming to the fore. You know, your thoughts on Brent Sam's particular performance in the last match, grabbing a hat-trick for the Defence Force?
I think Sam, from the start of the tournament, his energy was always there. Playing, we normally see him in the number 9 position, but playing a little wide right, the energy was there. But I think against the last game, scoring that hat-trick, I think the goals coming amongst the goals now he's at 5 goals for the tournament. I think once he gets the goal with the energy and the fight he has, I think Defence Force would be a team to be reckoned with.
And certainly their dependency on that front 3 of Boatswain, Rayon Moore and Sam is reflected in all 3 of them featuring among the top 5 so far after 7 matches played. And I would wager a bet that these men will continue to score, you know, and they will need to have goals, because when you look at the goal differential that Terminix Loughborough Rangers have been able to build up so far, definitely gold will need to keep coming from the Army unit. And speaking of Terminix Loughborough Rangers, Tyrone Charles, a double in the last fixture, moves him into the top 5 as well.
Yeah, I think Tyrone, being one of the experienced players within the league, for years now, Tyrone Charles has been scoring goals professionally in Trinidad. I think starting off the season, he started off a little slow. But his experience and his quality is starting to show through in terms of getting the goals, getting crucial goals. He would have scored opening goals for Terminix Rangers. So hoping to see him amongst the top 5 at the end of the season in terms of goals.
Yeah, no doubt that he has that goal scoring ability. Yeah. And he was searching for a hat-trick in that last match. It seemed to be evading him. He had a couple good chances. Yeah. He had some assists as well. And he even forced an own goal from the Central FC team. So definitely he's shown that he knows his way around the goal mouth. And definitely we would look forward to him continuing to score as well. When we look just outside, we see a young goal scorer back in his school days, is playing secondary school days, Isaiah Lee, just outside the top 5 in this list. but certainly he's shown the ability to get crucial goals as well for this Rangers team.
I think he's one of the young quality goal scorers we have in Trinidad and Tobago. Would have been part of the Gold Cup squad, recent Gold Cup squad with Coach Angus Eve. I think he needs to have a good tournament as well, because he would be one of the players that the country will be looking on in terms of getting goals for our national team in the future. So he needs to push on. He would have had a good professional league, the last professional league. I expect more of Isaiah. Honestly, I was expecting him to come and be amongst the top goal scorers. Ryan Moore would have been our next one on that national team as well. So seeing his teammates on the national setup amongst the goals, I think he needs to push on and really fight for that pick to be that number 9 when it comes to Trinidad and Tobago in the future.
Now, the likes of Woodley, Tyrone Charles are players a little bit further along in their careers, but it's good to see the persons like Isaiah Lee and another young man who in recent weeks has certainly lit up and found the goal-scoring touch from Police FC, Michael Gordon. You know, he had a double in the previous match round and a crucial one for them in their last affair against Central Soccer World. Your thoughts on him and his emergence for Police FC?
I've been looking at him for some time. Always thought he was a little small.
Slight of frame.
Yeah, he's been a little small. But I think in this tournament he's showing that his qualities really coming on, getting the goals now to add with his creative ability. I think it's important for him. And he's the next one would be looking on to maybe push into a national team in the future. Quality player, works hard, has an eye for the goal, he has an eye for assists as well. So it's important for him to continue to push and get the goals. Police as well, they've been sharing around their goals. So they really need somebody to take the mantle and say, all right, we need to stay ahead, we need to keep on pushing. And I would be the person to score. And I'm looking at him to be that person to take up the goal scoring mantle.
Unfortunately, statistics like these don't necessarily reflect some of the stellar work being put in by other players throughout this league, and definitely so far in this Ascension tournament, a number of players have emerged and caught the eye, you know, from the known names to some unknown names to some who we were looking forward to start stamping their names on this competition. You know, which players so far have sort of stood out to you?
One person starting out for me would be Real Gill, under 20 player. Got his first goal in the last game with Terminex Rangers in the 8-1 win. He's one that I'm looking to really push on within the tournament. I think everybody's speaking about him. He would have gotten a couple of man of the match performances, not scoring, but still being named man of the match. I think he's one that the country is looking on to be that next talent, that spark. He's full of talent, full of quality, but he needs to now get the goals and really push on so that we could say, all right, you deserve your pick. So I think for me, Real Gill is one that I think is a bright light within the tournament. Interesting
that you should mention, you know, he only got his first goal 7 weeks in, but certainly he's lit up the league so far and been a really crucial player for Terminex La Hoqueta Rangers. Is that a side of his game that you think he has to work on? You know, I'm looking at him behind the scenes. Is goal scoring really necessarily an area that he has to work on?
I really don't believe that. I truly believe that he has the ability to score goals. He needs to know that on top of the playing and the assists and the work rate, he needs to score at this level. He's now coming into professional football, top flight football, senior football. You'd have done it in youth football before. But he knows he has to add that to his game. He has to ensure that he goes out there and knows he has to get on the score sheet. I think, but once he gets familiar with senior football, I don't think it will be an issue with Real Gill.
Around the league, we see, as mentioned, you know, some of the familiar names, some of the not so familiar names also playing really crucial roles for their teams. I think one of the players that have stood out for me so far for Police FC has been Jabari Mitchell as well. You know, again, he's been in and around the youth setup of Trinidad and Tobago and 1 or 2 international call-ups as well. And he certainly pulled the strings. In that last match in particular, I felt that Coach Hood was able to rely on his experience and asking the player to be a little bit more responsible when Police FC actually went down to 9 men. And actually in the post-match comments, he did have you know, he did mention that he felt as though he needed to mature, if not this in that match, definitely this season, and he had the opportunity to do so in the midfield in that last match.
I think a lot of the police players need to mature within this tournament. It's a fresh bunch. They've retooled their team for maybe last 3-4 years. It's a nice bunch together. I've mentioned earlier they won the FCB Cup in 2019. So it's a team that they need to now show that all right, we are there, we have arrived, show that maturity and understand their roles and really mature as a team. So that's something I'm looking for from Police FC in this tournament, to see their growth throughout the years. I think they have arrived. So they need to stay amongst the leaders and really stamp the authority.
And this tournament will continue to certainly provide the perfect opportunity for them to continue to mature and grow into their roles and responsibilities. Looking around the league, we've seen a lot of goals. We've seen some teams showing a little bit more defensive sturdiness. From that perspective, that area of the game, you know, let's look at the defensive side. You mentioned earlier Cameron Purcell as well for Police FC, but I think a few other players stand out from that defensive side. Anyone you wager to put some money on that will perhaps capture the attention of maybe the national coach or other big teams?
I think the wing backs within the tournament have been excellent, defensively and attacking. When you look at the assists amongst the league, a lot of wing backs have assists. I don't know what it is in terms of the new style of football with wing backs giving assistance to the attack, but it's been a breath of fresh air in terms of watching defensive football, watching defenders getting to the attack and really assisting. I think it's something that Trinidad football has been lacking for a bit, allowing their wing backs to attack and be in the attack. And we know in statistics, more players in attack, the greater chances of scoring a goal. So it will only augur well for Trinidad football in the future once we could get our defenders to attack a bit. But for me, the older guys have really stand up in terms of the Leslie Russells and the Purcells I've mentioned before, would have really stand up and I must give credit to them in terms of being down for 2 years in a pandemic and being able to keep their body fit in terms of coming back out. Short turnaround in terms of the clearance to play and being able to go out on the field and standing up the way they are. I think I must give credit to the players through the pandemic for really staying fit and staying focused to play. And
definitely goalkeeping has also shot into focus in this competition so far. The likes of Adrian Fonset, but I think a young star would have emerged in the last round, young Jadel Poon-Lewis from AC Port of Spain. You know, he was able to, after they went down against Real Westport, stand strong and really command his area and command his team moving forward. You know, your thoughts on his performance?
His performance was big. I think without him, they would have been in some trouble early. Westport would have really came at them in the first half in terms of really stamping the authority. As I said, the battle of the West. But he stood tall, not being a tall guy in the post, but he stood tall in terms of his saves and his level of maturity and his poise in the goal. He got some saves in terms of where you know the keeper, where you get a shot and you're pushing it onto a player.
Yeah.
I think he showed a better class in terms of turning some around the post and whatnot. I think important saves for them. But in the tournament, they have a lot of quality keepers. We have the national keeper within the tournament. We have at Terminex, there are 2 keepers that I think anyone would say should be on the national team. We have Fonset, a national keeper as well. Would not have been on the squad for the last game, but for most parts, he's on the national roster as a goalkeeper. So I think within the tournament, we've seen a lot of quality keepers. Through the years, most of our quality keepers for Trinidad would have been outside. I think we are blessed within the Ascension tournament to have so many quality senior players and young goalkeepers as well coming up. Seeing that come emerging through the tournament is one that I think Coach Eve and Coach Ince, as the keeper coach with the national team, would be pleased within the tournament.
Certainly Clayton Ince, you know, as a former national goalkeeper himself, definitely would have a difficult time sort of choosing, you know, as And he would have been accustomed to that himself, because he did come up in an era, that was really, rich with talent.
Would have been tough
from that goalkeeping perspective. It's the Ascension Football Show, and of course we continue to wrap up the Ascension Tournament of Trinidad and Tobago. Looking ahead, we will be, just after the other side of this break, we'll be looking to wrap up and certainly look ahead to the fixtures that are coming up in the next game week. Some crucial ones at that. You don't want to miss it. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Ascension Football Show. We continue our wrap show, looking back and certainly in this segment, looking ahead to what's to come in this competition. But it certainly has been a breath of fresh air for the football-loving public of Trinidad and Tobago. Live televised matches, live streamed matches. Everywhere you turn, the talk of the town is the Ascension Football Tournament. And it certainly has really brought a certain life back to local football after 2 years in a pandemic state. Tell me a little bit about, I guess, how the vision has manifested so far into what we've seen, not just on the field of play, but certainly in the entertainment factor of this competition.
The vision, as we always say at Ascension, the vision is to mix the sport with entertainment. And football is entertainment. And we wanted to showcase that in the 2022 tournament in terms of letting the fans really taking the culture of Trinidad and Tobago, and not just the fans locally, regionally as well. We know to be self-sufficient, TV is backed in terms of football, so you need to be able to broadcast the games. You need persons to be engaged with the games. Anywhere they look, they could pull on the phone, they could be able to get it on most apps. They'll be able to stream it on YouTube. So it's important for us. We set up the Ascension Tournament.com in terms of enabling persons to be able to look at the game anytime, look at replays of the games. So it was important to get that aspect of the football out. And in years to come, not too far, hopefully we'll have big sponsors, the likes of ESPN and Fox Sports, wanting to take our games, and then that will now trickle to the clubs and be able to allow the clubs to be self-sufficient. They'll now, corporate trader could look in and say, all right, Deportivo or West Fort or AC Port Spain playing 18 match games for the season, my brand now could be on a jersey and now bring brand awareness. So it's that package in terms of ensuring that the games are being televised. But the next side of it is the culture of Trinidad and Tobago. There are a lot of artists, local artists, need a platform to be able to perform outside of the carnival season. And there are many new genres within Trinidad now. There's that nice dancehall flavor. We have the reggae setup, and then we have our soca artists. So it's to give them a platform throughout the year to be able to showcase their talents, and get the crowds to be able to come, because it's a Trinidad culture, party culture. We look at a game, we watch our favorite players play, but we want to knock back and enjoy and now reminisce about the game. Nice music, artists performing. It goes hand in hand. And while the game is going on, we have the cheerleaders, the dancers, the rhythm section. Something to throw your eye off. Sometimes a bad player corner, you look at something else, you really feel engaged throughout the entire event. And it's really about that. It's really centered around the spectators, the fans, persons looking on TV to be engaged throughout the game. I think that's the way internationally it's done. When you look at the Super Bowl, most televised
Correct.
game, we need to be able to showcase that in Caribbean, and we have everything for it.
Very well said, and definitely the engagement from a fan perspective, from just a general onlooker, certainly is there. You have the rhythm sections, you have, as you mentioned, the cheerleaders, the dancers, and certainly a lot of supporting factors that makes these games so entertaining. And I must say that being to all three of the venues that have been used so far, it's pleasing to see fans going to all of them. Nobody's saying Arima is too far, or the Arimians saying Port of Spain is too far. They've all gone out, they've supported their teams, and I think the mix of teams has certainly lent to that as well. We have teams from all corners of Trinidad and Tobago. As far as the Western Peninsula, you have the Arima team, you have Central, and even Deep South, and that is certainly, or has been so far, winning formula, you would say?
It's something that we looked at. Moruga being a late addition to the tournament, bottom of the table, but still, in terms of reaching players as far as Moruga, giving them the opportunity to showcase their talents, it was important for the tournament. The owner of the sponsor of the tournament would have said, as we say, bill it and they'll come. So it's something that we put on the production, and we knew that the persons and the numbers are there. When you look at every game, it's persons would have said before, it's only in Locketa you would get crowds, but when you look at Yarima Velodrome crowds, you look at the police barracks, and the police barracks is a new ground in terms of having games played, and persons are turning up there, looking at the game. But it's about the structure and the formula, and we need to get it right. I think most persons will look at it, and we need to have our football going forward played in this way and marketed in this way. And I think we have laid a foundation. I think persons would be able to emulate and move forward with it in the future.
I dare say that the next edition of this tournament will see teams, sort of putting their hands up to try to be a part. It is an invitational tournament, therefore it means that not everyone will get in, but certainly I would take the liberty to say that as many teams as possible and as much as a diverse amount of teams as possible certainly will be considered for the next edition. So far though, it's just 10 teams, and of course all 10 will be in action in the next round of matches beginning on Friday, May the 13th. Lucky 13 in this case. We don't want the other bad luck to be associated. Certainly not the 4 teams that will be in action on Friday the 13th. They are the leading team, Terminix Lahokita Rangers, taking on Kunupia FC in the opening match of that evening's double header. A crucial match for both teams, especially I would say the home team, Lahokita Rangers, for the very mere fact that the next matchup will see the 2 teams that are hunting them down very closely, the Defence Force and Police FC, feature in what I like to term the men of law versus the men of war. That's the Defence Force versus Police on Friday the 13th. Action will continue at the Arima Velodrome, with AC Port of Spain taking on Moruga FC in game 1 of another doubleheader on that day, and Deportivo Point Fortin looking to maintain momentum, taking on Real West Fort United. Action then moves on Sunday to the St. James Police Barracks with a Central derby, Central Soccer World taking on Central FC. Both of those teams coming off defeats definitely would want to use this match against their crosstown rivals, so to speak, to capitalize on and acquire the points that will help them move up the table. Your pick of the matches in this next round?
Before I get my pick, I want to get back to something you would have mentioned in terms of inviting the more teams. As the director, I want to put the disclaimer out there. The tournament was actually to showcase over 72 teams.
Wow.
Because of the pandemic in 2020, we had it carried for 72 plus teams. Because of the pandemic, we had to curtail the tournament. We got the approval from the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Sport, in terms of having just the top flight with 10 teams. But there is a second division and a third division encompassing all zonal teams. So it's not the Ascension just for 10 teams. I think in 2023 we would have, and once the pandemic, we have the pandemic under control, I think we'll have all teams being played at the same time and really make it even bigger in 2023.
So you heard it here yourself, 72 teams perhaps, or even more to be considered in the next edition. And certainly we look forward to the expansion of this tournament to include football and footballers at all levels of the game, but looking back to the upcoming fixtures,
there's one game that I think the whole of Trinidad would be glued and wanting to come to Locketa to watch would be the Defence Force, the Battle of the Forces. As first time I hear the
men of law versus the men of war.
Yeah, I think that game would be the game for the match.
Definitely. I would venture to perhaps maybe look outside at that Deportivo and Real West Fort, because I think it's a crucial match for Deportivo Point Fortin, and if they are able to get the 3 points as is anticipated, certainly they could be challenging Kunupia FC, and certainly if there is a loser in that, your pick of the match, they will have to be looking over their shoulders at Deportivo moving into the second round as well.
I think Deportivo has this game would be a crucial game for Deportivo. They would leapfrog Kunupia once Terminix Rangers, the team on top, keeps pace, and it's a crucial game for them. They could possibly, in terms of the way they've drawn what 1-1 with Deportivo with Defense Force.
With Defense Force, yeah.
So going forward, this would give them a boost going into the second rounds in terms of saying, all right, guys, let's buckle down. We could do this. We could finish in top 3, and I think the sky's the limit once they could get past Westford in that game.
Yeah, these 3 points definitely will be crucial.
Crucial.
From a leadership perspective, the ideal result for the top 3, the top 4 involved in that Friday evening doubleheader. The ideal results.
Draws
all around.
All around.
Yeah.
I don't want, as the director, it's hard to say you want to favor this team. But I think if Police and Defense Force draw that game, I think it's that would be trouble in the camp. I think it would give it. I think for Defense Force more so, it's very important for Defense Force to win that game against Police. It's for the last couple of tournaments. It's always been Rangers, Defense Force, Rangers, Police. So I know that game, in terms of keeping pace with Rangers, it's very important for them. I don't think it would be a 3-horse race coming down to the end. I think a 2-horse race would, and it's this game here would decide if it's Police or Defense Force with Rangers coming down to the wire. For
that entertainment factor that you speak so passionately about, I hope that it's a 3 or maybe even a 4-horse race coming down to the latter stages of round 2. But for now, this is how it will pan out in the next round of matches. Once again, let's go over those fixtures. Terminix La Hoquita Rangers will be taking on Kunupia FC in the opening match of a doubleheader. That's a 6 p.m. kickoff at the La Hoquita Phase 2 ground, and followed by Defense Force versus Police FC on Friday the 13th of May. On the 14th, action will move to the Arima Velodrome as customary. AC Port of Spain, they are heading back to that venue, and they'll be taking on the boys from Deep South, coming from Maruga, hopefully with 10 pound of goals instead of the other word that could slot into that phrase. And of course, following that, the other Deep South team, Deportivo Point Fortin. Hopefully those guys have not overindulged in the recent Point Fortin Borough Day festivities and can continue to maintain pace with a fixture against Real West Fort United, looking for a crucial win in that fixture as well. On Sunday the 15th of May, it's Central Soccer World versus Central FC, the Central Sharks, in a derby of Central Trinidad and Tobago to round off match week 8 in the Ascension tournament of Trinidad and Tobago. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Edwards, the tournament director of the Ascension tournament, for sitting in and helping us recap all that we've seen so far in this fantastic edition 2022 of this competition. May that long continue with footballing entertainment for all to enjoy as much as we would like. Right? That's it for this week's show. Join us again next week for another edition of the wrap show of the Ascension football tournament.